How's it going, my friends? We are back with another video, and today the Z6 Mark II has started shipping, and I wanted to put out this video on the date because it's a historic date for us who've been in the Z6 system, or the Z system, since it was released, and we've been following the whole progress of firmware updates and just the Z roadmap and all that, and it's really kind of exciting to see this stuff materialize. Nikon was nice enough to send me out a Z6 Mark II body for me to test, and thanks to them, they're great. I mean, basically they sent me an email saying, you know, hey, we've been watching your channel. We love how you actually use these cameras in your daily business, and we'd like to send you out a Z6 Mark II to test. And there were no strings attached, no money or anything like that. They didn't pay me. They were just like, hey, tell us your honest opinion on it, and yeah, we like your channel. So it was really nice to be able to hear that from Nikon, that they're actually paying attention to the people who are using it, because I've made a lot of recommendations since the beginning of this camera, and you know, it's nice to know that they're listening. And you know, I had said this from the beginning, that Nikon put out the Z6 Mark I. It wasn't perfect, but they knew that they were going to have a roadmap for updating it, and they totally have. I mean, the crazy amounts of firmware updates we've gotten has transformed the camera, and now they've taken all the other things that people were lagging, you know, they thought the Z6 was lagging behind, and replaced that in this new body. So we have you know, dual card slots here. We have a UHS-2 and an XQD or CF Express. We have the ability to add a battery grip, which isn't very interesting to me because I don't shoot with battery grips anyways, but that was important to some people. We have USB-C charging, which is pretty cool, and a new battery. Other than that, the actual body is the same. You know, they haven't really updated anything else. It's the same form factor, which is great because I love it anyways. You know, I do wish that they would have done something with the screen. They would have made it you know, a little bit more tilty, or even flip around the side. You know, it's really helpful. Like when I'm doing my videos right here, I'm using a Z6 and I can't see myself. It would be really nice if they had that, but I guess it's a minor gripe. And also the the light, the autofocus light here, the green autofocus light, it still gets cut off with this. If you have a hood on it, you know, if you're shooting in low light inside, just take the hood off, because it hits the side of it and it cuts off like half the autofocus beam, which is kind of stupid if you ask me. The other thing that I wish that they would have done with this is I wish they would have taken so when you bring up the tracking box for the 3D tracking, it's white and it only stays white. And a lot of times when you're shooting during the day, and like us, Sarah and I, we shoot in black and white, so that box can sometimes, like if you're, it comes up right in the middle when you activate it. If there's something white, it gets lost in there and you can't automatically see if it comes up. It would be really nice, Nikon, if you could change that through a firmware update and make the box, you could change it. Like you can change your peaking highlights to like yellow, red, I think blue or whatever. It would be so nice if you could change that box color so it would stand out against the background a little bit more. But other than that, I'm here to talk about the autofocus in a low light. Okay, so first thing I want to say is this camera feels like going from a 8 gigabyte computer to like a 32 gigabyte RAM computer. It's snappier, it's faster. That's obviously because we have two processors in there. There's dual X-speed processors, which make this thing way more snappy and fast. That's like the first thing that I noticed as soon as I fired this camera up. It's just faster. Like the 3D tracking box locks onto something and it snaps back and forth. Like you can literally just whip the camera around and that thing is going to grab it. It's processing the information about what it's getting off the sensor, and it knows exactly where it is, and it's able to make those adjustments when you move the camera around or when your subject moves way faster. Very, very noticeable. The low light autofocus is much better. I found that, so when Sarah and I were shooting on the dance floor at weddings, we would only be able to use, in order to get like a high keep rate or a high hit rate, we would only be able to use dynamic area autofocus in AFC on the dance floor. Okay, that's all we used. That was the best scenario or best mode for getting a high hit rate. Dynamic area autofocus in AFC, which is the box that has that little one and then a bunch of dots around. That was the best low light autofocus. Now we can actually use it in AFS with auto area. So you can leave it in the face tracking mode. It doesn't always pick up in low light. It's not going to always pick up the face, but it always picks up like a form in front of you and accurately focuses on that in low light, which is amazing because when you're on the dance floor, obviously things are like really fast. You're moving around like crazy and just jumping into the action. At least that's how I shoot. I don't shoot from the outskirts. I actually get on the dance floor. And, you know, using a mode to where there's no like tracking or intelligent autofocus is kind of tough because you have to look through the viewfinder the whole time because you have to see where you're framing. But now you can kind of just, you can leave it off your eye and kind of look at the screen and just kind of frame it that way and just let the camera pick it up. Let the camera figure out what to focus on. So they've stepped it up in terms of the firmware, or I'm sorry, the hardware and the way it reacts with the algorithm and the software. They've really made it better in low light, and it's a lot snappier. The performance in low light is much better when you're filming or when you're shooting things that are, you're trying to like, when you're shooting things in a fast way. You're not just like setting something down and then, you know, focusing on you have plenty of time. That is pretty much comparable to the Z6. You know, I really didn't notice too much of a difference, but I did notice in like a fast way. If I'm just trying to jump around, I have a flash in my hand or a flash mounted to the top, and I'm just, you know, kind of going fast looking for targets, I could just leave it in the AF auto area mode. Sometimes it picks up the face, sometimes it doesn't, but it always tracks like a figure in front, okay? And I can use it in AFS, so I can actually use the beam, which is, I mean, that's pretty great, you know? I don't know. They've really stepped it up in the low light area. But face tracking, IAF, reliability of the autofocus, it's a whole new camera. I mean, it really is. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go in, and I did a bunch of behind the scenes stuff with the Atomos, and I'll show you how it works. And I did some voiceover just kind of explaining what I'm doing, and then I took a bunch of still shots also and put those in there so you'd be able to actually see how many it got in focus, which is crazy. So this thing will not leave the face, okay? It picks up the eye about 5 feet out from the camera, okay? But from 5 feet beyond, if the subject's further out, it's tracking the face, and it is in focus every single time. Now, I don't know if they tweak the algorithm or whatever, but there was kind of an issue before where sometimes if you're using the face tracking, it would kind of focus a little bit forward, like if it was on an eye, it maybe be like a little bit further towards the eyelash rather than the eyeball. They fixed that. So we with our test here, Sarah was out and it was a really windy day, and her hair was all over the face. It was constantly going in front of her eyes, in front of her face, all that. But somehow this camera was able to know exactly where the eye was, because it was, no matter what was in front of her face, it was still focusing on the plane where the eyeball should be. So she was running forward, she was going back, she was spinning around, waving her hands in front of her face, all that, and it was still able to pick it up. So this is a huge improvement from the Z6. One of the things with the Z6 Mark I that was kind of tough was sometimes when it would miss the face or it would lock onto the face and then jump off, it would slam towards the back. And Manny had a video on this, and that was one of the reasons why he couldn't use it in the beginning. Was because, you know, he just, compared to the Sony, it wasn't grabbing the face and staying on the way that the Sony did, and when it jumped off of it, it would slam towards the back. That's all been fixed. It doesn't do that anymore. If it does lose the face, it stays in the same focal plane. It doesn't just slam to the back and then try and find something. It stays in the same focal plane, and then, like you'll see in the video, Sarah would, like, she's looking at you, she'd spin around. Most of the time it would grab it, but if she kept spinning around, it would flip off of it. But as soon as her face came back in, it wasn't in the back trying to find it. It was on the same focal plane, so it was a lot faster. So they've made an intelligent design upgrade above the X-Speed processors. I think that just allowed them to write more powerful software or algorithms just to improve the autofocus, you know, off the bat. So I am pretty excited because this is the first iteration of the Z6 Mark II. I'm sure that they're going to do the same thing that they did with the Z6 Mark I and just keep releasing firmware updates and keep improving this. But we have dual card slots now. We have crazy autofocus. We have X-Speed processors making the camera way faster all around. We have low light improvement. We have battery grip. If you're into that sort of thing, you want that, they got that for you. and we have the same build quality, which is stellar and top notch, leading in its class. So, I mean, I don't know what else you want from Nikon, honestly. They've really done everything. In a $2,000 body, they've really done everything that you possibly can ask for in this camera. I don't know. I don't think that anybody's going to have anything to complain about. And, you know, I hate just going off on a tangent about all the good things, but there's really not a lot of bad things to talk about with this camera. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump over to the Atomos. I'm going to show you guys some behind the scenes stuff on how this is actually working. And then I'll come back and give you some of my ending thoughts with the camera. But I'm really excited to show you this because I think you guys are going to be as impressed as I was. So let's go over and check this out, and we'll be back with some ending thoughts after. Alright, so first off, what we're going to do is try and test one of the hardest things, which is autofocus while it's coming right towards you. Okay, so you could see that obviously this thing has no problem picking up her face. I mean, it's right on. Back there, that's probably like maybe 15 feet away. She runs up, grabs her face while she's moving, and then goes back. And then, I mean, really, I'm going to show you guys a bunch of these shots right at the end, a bunch of still shots here. This stuff is right on. I mean, it's picking up and snapping and grabbing the frame as she's moving pretty much perfectly. I didn't even grab all these shots to show you guys. I mean, these are just a bunch of, like, you know, singles that I grabbed, but look how in focus that is. I mean, literally, it's dead nuts. It's right on the eyeball. It's not even on the eyelash or anything. It's really right on her face, and it's perfectly in focus. I mean, it really doesn't get any much better. And then we got this next sequence here, same thing. I just want to show you how it like locks onto her face. She's jumping up and down, moving, backlight, pretty much no problem. And like I said, these aren't even all the ones that were in focus. These are just a few that I grabbed. But the other thing that was really good is, you know, her hair is really windy out this day. So her hair was constantly in her face, but it stayed on. It knew where her eyes were the whole time, and even if the box grabbed some of her hair, it was always in focus on her face. So whatever Nikon did with the algorithm to kind of say, hey, you know, if there's something goes in front of the face, stay back a little bit and focus. I don't know what they did, but it's working out perfectly. Look at all these. In focus, in focus. You know, the hair's right there, but the eyes are still in focus. It knows exactly where to grab the focus. I mean, it really does. And then look at this. Even as she was spinning around like that, her hair's in her face. Look at this. Bang. Everything still in focus. And it's her eye. It's not just her hair. I'm shooting it wide open this whole time, guys. This is on 35 1.8, wide open. Still got it pretty much every single time. And, you know, like I said 2 other times ago, these aren't even all the photos, excuse me, that were in focus. It was just the ones that I grabbed. Yeah, see, grabbing her face, no problem. They really did an awesome job. Goes right to the eye. About 5 feet out, it'll snatch the eye. And the rest of the time, it'll just stay on the face. But, hey, everything's in focus when, you know, that you need to be. Here, we're in extreme backlight right here, shooting basically right into the sun. Still has no problem grabbing it. Obstructions, you know. Look at that. Waving in front of the face still picks up the eye. How amazing is that? Yeah, and you can see here, string of photos, all in focus. Even with the foot, still grabbed their face, didn't move off. Bang. Still on the eye. I don't know what else you want, guys. I mean, that's pretty much perfect. Here we just have some more testing on the face just to make sure it stays on while she moves around and how fast it goes and locks. Bang, same thing. Hair's all in her face, covering her eyes, but it still grabs it. No problem. Doesn't get confused, doesn't shoot off to the back. See, with the old version of the old firmware on the first Z6, if it lost the face, it would really jump back into the background and try and grab the background a lot. It doesn't do that here. And then there we go, still saying, hair's all in her face, extreme backlight. It really doesn't get much more difficult. Still all in focus. I mean, this is pretty damn impressive. Pretty impressive. Excellent. As you can see, the hair didn't mess it up at all. So this one, we moved locations obviously, and I wanted to show you guys how good this 3D tracking box sticks now. Look at that. Look how fast I'm moving it around, and it still snaps back really fast. I mean, the dual processors in this thing have made it just way more responsive. Look at that, right to the corners. No matter how fast you move it, it's still going to grab it and stay on. Yep, right there. This is with the 58 1.4, guys. I switched to the F lens, or F mount lens. There you go. Look at how beautiful that lens is. Yep, same thing here. I just wanted her to move around a lot and just show you guys that this face tracking, it's even to the corners, it's right there. Very snappy. Huh. Wow, it's pretty much unbelievable. All right, my friends, I hope you guys enjoyed that. As you can see, very impressive. They've made a lot of changes, and all the changes seem to be very good. This is a good thing that Nikon was listening to us, okay? Everybody in the community, be happy about this, because not a lot of camera companies are actually reaching out to people who are using the camera in a way that I do for my business, not just the YouTube channel. I'm using it like this is my bread and butter. This is what I rely on. And they're taking comments and, you know, upgrade ideas from different people. Nikon, I think, is really in this to dominate the mirrorless camera market, and I just am really excited about it. So another thing is, I hope you noticed the quality of the Z lenses. In my opinion, guys, it's time to upgrade to Z lenses. Okay, I still have some F mount stuff. I still have the 58 1.4 as you saw. I have the 28 1.4, but I'm getting rid of those as soon as I find good. As soon as I have replacements with the Z line. The lenses, guys, they're a whole different thing. When you pair the F mount lenses, work, they definitely do. But if you're shooting fast moving subjects or people or anything like that, or you want the highest optical image quality, you got to step up to the Z lenses. You know, in my opinion, they just work better. They're faster. They're more responsive. They're quiet. They're, you know, weather sealed. They're smaller, more compact. They're just better in general. So I'm going to continue upgrading. I have the 51.2 on order, and as soon as I get my hands on that, I'm going to definitely put that through the ringer and release some other videos on it too. But if, you know, question just real quick, should you upgrade or not? Should you go with the Z6ii over the one? Guys, the Z6 Mark 1 is still an excellent camera. It's still phenomenal. If you're doing landscapes, if you're doing, you know, just general purpose shooting or video, any of that stuff, it's still a freaking crazy capable camera. I mean, it's same image quality and all that. It's still beautiful. But if you're shooting people or any type of fast moving subjects, yes, it's an upgrade. 100%. Definitely worth it. No questions about it. So, I hope that you guys really learned something and this was helpful. I know this didn't go into all the aspects, but the most important part is, you know, the responsiveness with the new hardware, the autofocus, what do we have in focus, how many are we getting for keepers, things that really matter to people like you and I, you know, whoever's watching this, other photographers out there. Just try and make it more practical, these type of reviews. But this is the stuff that was important to me, so I wanted to pass it along to you guys. Any other questions, feel free to reach out. I appreciate everybody who's interacted with the channel, and till the next video, my friends.